Good morning, everyone. It's Cameron with Venus Theory, and welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with Cameron. So, we are here to continue on with the sound design series today, and today I wanted to take a moment to answer one of the top questions I get asked, which is, how do I get started? So, I know a lot of you guys are pretty experienced producers, however, there are a lot of newer producers that watch my videos as well. So I get asked a lot about just getting into sound design. How do I get started? Who do I go to for work? How much do I charge? How much do I make? What do I need? And all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to make a blanket video to address this question, because I think it's a pretty big topic and there isn't really any other video out there, I found at least in searching, that explains what it is I actually do and how to get into it. So I want to start this off by saying that a lot of my journey has just been the right place at the right time, and I think that stands for just about anything music related. It's just, I got really lucky, and a lot of the other sound designers I know kind of have the same story. So that is kind of the downside to this, I guess. However, I do think I have some insight and tips that I hope will help you guys who are looking to get into this as a career, who are maybe just looking to get your feet wet with it, or maybe you're younger or whatever, and you're just keeping your options open, and this is maybe something you want to consider doing. So, one of the big questions with this is, how did I learn everything, and did I go to school for what I do? The answer to this is no. I attended 1 year of college at a music production college, and I personally found it to be a bit of a waste of time. However, that is because I had been doing a lot of this stuff for a while beforehand, so I didn't really gain anything out of it. If you are brand new to audio production, some kind of audio-related college or technical school may be a good option, depending on just your financial situation. That said, a lot of what I know, a lot of what I've learned has just been through experience and doing it until I got it right, and just furiously reading and looking at everything available to me, whether that's on YouTube or whether that's books at a library or whether that's just, Googling around and forums and all that stuff. I mean, there's so much information out there that can really help you get a great understanding of, how synthesis works and how to mic up something to record it, and just all that kind of stuff. So if you are looking for more formal training in this kind of thing, I recommend just going around YouTube and the library. There are plenty of books about sound design and audio science stuff and all of that out there, and I think this is definitely something that you can pick up and learn, as long as you're willing to put in the time and effort to really hone in your skills and get a better understanding of all of this stuff if you're new to it and have never done it before. So the other big question is, I'm an experienced producer and I'm ready to get started, or, I'm finally done training myself and I want to get into this. How do I go about doing that? So I think there are a couple ways of doing this, and I wanted to dive into each of these a little bit. The first and most obvious answer being do it yourself. There is nothing stopping you from setting up a website with a service like Sellfy or Squarespace or Bandzoogle or any of the other website builder or storefront building services. You can certainly go out, make your own little drum kits and sample packs and sell them directly. I think there are a couple downsides to this. Number one being that you are solely responsible for the promotion and service of your product. And if you're not the most experienced person, and you maybe don't have much of a following or a network, this can be incredibly hard at first. And I think people go into this field with the wrong expectations, that they're going to be able to just make a bunch of drum kits, put them online, and quit their day job. That is not at all a realistic expectation in my experience. The other downside being you kind of work alone. And while I personally don't think that's a bad thing, I prefer to work alone. I'm very meticulous and have my processes and things I like to do. But if you're new to the game, it can be pretty hard to kind of come up with ideas and know what is expected of you, and knowing your audience and things like that. So working with others or working somewhat loosely with another company, I think, is a great way to start, because you can get experience and knowledge and background in what should I put in a sample pack, what kind of sample pack should I make, all that kind of stuff. And then just all the other experience I've learned a ton of stuff from the companies I've worked for and the people I've worked with. So the other way to go about getting into this, and the way I personally think is best, is to reach out to sample pack companies that you like. So I personally don't use services like Splice or Sounds.com or anything like that, or Loopmasters. I really don't buy samples, and I haven't bought samples in a very long time. And that's because I make my own. But, what I'm saying here is that the best way I think to get started, and the way I get a lot of work and got a lot of work at first, was just reaching out to companies that I liked their samples. This could be Looploft or, whatever. They're Black Octopus, I guess, for example. Any of the large-ish companies are always looking for new contractors and just independent producers to work with. So if you think you've got what it takes, I highly recommend getting started that way. When I really started getting into this as a job, that was what I did. I just, I found the companies I really liked, their sample packs, and, I'd bought their packs in the past or whatever. I just reached out to them and just said, hey, I'm a producer, here's my portfolio, I'd love to work with you. And I would say probably 9 times out of 10, I got the job. The downsides to this being that you don't get the full sale every time, but I think that kind of balances itself out in terms of volume, as long as you work with a relatively large company with a somewhat big distribution network, meaning the pack is distributed to Splice and wherever, and as long as it gets enough traction, I think you can make decent money doing it this way. However, like I said, you're not going to keep 100% of the sale. But reaching out to these companies and asking to work for them, I think is great. It develops a good relationship and you can continue to work with them. And typically, they just say, hey, whenever you've got something, bring it to us. In my experience, that's kind of how it works. The big thing in a case like this is you do need a portfolio. You might have noticed I mentioned that. So the third and final route to get work, and I think this to some extent only applies if you're really interested in sound design from a film and game perspective, that would be to find a proper sound design studio or service and apply with them. I personally have never gone that route. The only times I've done anything related to film or game sounds, it was just kind of I knew a guy who knew a guy type of situation. So I can't really speak to that, so I'm just going to stop there. However, that would be my advice. If you are looking to get into the film and game sound design world, I would just look for any studios perhaps in your area, if you're located in a metro area, to reach out to and just touch base with and see if you can work for them. Otherwise, in a similar vein, if you're not located in a big city or anything like that, I work remotely. I've not worked in an actual physical office in 6 years. So, I wouldn't worry about it if you're not located in a city. As long as you have the skills and the equipment, you can work from wherever you are, which I think is great. Okay, so that brings us to portfolios. What do I need in a portfolio? How do I make a portfolio? So on and so on. This is a really big question, and this is something that I think people tend to overthink. But I think the main point and question I want to address here is, how do I make a portfolio if I've never done this work before? So one of the big things I do is I make free sample packs. I have a couple released on my website. I've worked with other people on a couple free ones, throwing them up on Reddit's drum kit page or, just things like that. And then I have my own personal library of samples. I have a bazillion gigabytes of just random stuff I've recorded that I've packed together. And that is what I would advise you do. If you've never done this stuff before, you've never released a commercial, formal product sample pack, build up your own. And these can just be anything. And the big thing you want to showcase is variety and your specialty. So what I do is I just have a big set of all the free packs I've produced. I have my own personal library that I share segments of as part of a portfolio. And then I have my commercial and more formal releases. But if you don't have commercial and formal releases, just having your own personal library is a great way just to get your foot in the door and put that in a portfolio. So when it comes to what do I put in a portfolio once you have all that together, my advice would be to put things that are genre specific and showcase a variety. And like I said earlier, your specialty, which we'll touch on in a minute. So you want to produce, a dubstep sample pack, a trap sample pack, a R&B sample pack or pop sample pack, a future-based sample pack, so on and so on. And this should showcase just about everything. I'm not talking just drum kits. I'm not talking just audio loops. I'm talking the whole thing as much as you possibly can. And, stretch your comfort zone a bit. There are genres I don't work with, but, I pushed myself to make a sample pack so I can show that, yes, I can do this. So, producing a little pack, let's say kicks, snares, hats, and cymbals and percussions, 10 sounds each. I would ask for probably 20 synth presets, typically Serum, as that's the most popular, but any synth presets will do just to show that you can. Maybe some contact patches or EXS24 or anything. But just a small taster pack, just to show that I can make X type of sounds. And like I said, just do this for just about everything. House, trance, dubstep, blues, heavy metal, whatever you think it is you want to approach. So when it comes to your specialty, this is something I think people don't address. And one of the big things, and one of the things I get a lot of feedback on, because I always, try and talk to the companies I work for, or clients or whatever. One of the things I get the most compliments on, and people seem to bring up the most, is just my sound. Like my sounds have a different character to them than other packs. And I think this is what you need to be able to sit there and dial in on. And, a lot of my processes and my secret sauce and whatever is just a very, amorphous blob of experience and things I like to do. And I guess it's just stuff that other people maybe don't do or whatever. And, as I'm sure you guys are familiar with, a lot of my trade secret is just layering a lot of stuff with a lot of Foley. And that's how I get these nice, organic sounds. All of this is to say, maybe you really specialize in one specific genre. I know I, as Venus Theory, as an artist, have a pretty specific thing I do, and I try to inject that into every sample pack I make, no matter what genre or whatever it is I'm making. I just put that extra bit of sauce in there just to, try and make it stand out and make it be interesting. So, maybe you're really into trap or you're really into dubstep or whatever, just honing in on your thing and really making that stand out, I think, is what gets you the job more often than not. Having that thing that sets you apart from every other person who wants to sit at home making drum kits all day, that is what will set you apart from the competition. So next up, the other question is equipment. What do I need to get started? And I've talked about this a little bit, but if you go to our website, there is a gear page, and that has a list of just a lot of the stuff I use a lot. But the biggest thing I would say you need to get started is a home studio, some decent monitors, obviously a really deep knowledge of everything. But the big thing would just be like a field recording setup. And that's pretty much it. Like a decent little selection of microphones at your home studio. And a lot of it is just being able to access certain things, being able to go out and record a live drum kit, whether that's at a local music shop or at a friend's house or whatever. Having access to maybe some instruments or a way to rent instruments, and just a really creative self-starter vibe. That's the biggest thing. And that's, I think, what I see a lot of producers fail at, even outside of the sound design career. These people go gung-ho into it, but they don't have that drive and that passion. And this is something you need in this field, trust me. So just that really creative mindset of, I'm going to go in my kitchen and I am going to make a drum kit / mini sample pack today. Things like that. I think that is just invaluable, and that's not something you can get at the store. That's just something you need. But yeah, gear-wise, I think the requirements are pretty minimal. You need a DAW, you need a decent computer, and you need to know how to work it all. So to kind of cap this off, the other big question I get a lot is just the financial end. How much do I charge? Am I gonna make any money? Do I think that this job is worth it? So I can say wholeheartedly, I love what I do. I exist to make noises and experiment with stuff, and I love doing it. There is nothing on earth I would rather do. Does this job drive me insane sometimes? Yeah, a little bit. It can be incredibly frustrating and tedious, and you know, you have to do stuff sometimes you just don't enjoy. Like, I don't really like some genres of music, but, you know, I have to produce stuff for them. But, you know, that's fine. That's just part of the trade. And, you know, the other thing I think that is required that a lot of people don't get is that, you know, it's all on you. Whether you're selling directly by yourself or working for a company or whatever, you need to be the one that gets up in the morning, has a creative mindset, and enough focus and drive to see the project through and get it done and make sure it's done right the first time. I think this is an incredibly competitive field. I think this is really hard to get into. I think you will probably go nuts, and there are a lot of late nights, and, you know, it's hard. But like I said, I absolutely love it. I think it's the coolest job on earth, and I will not give this up for as long as I can. So when it comes to the money, you know, what am I gonna make, I guess, is the big question, and how I would phrase it. Because a lot of people ask me what my financial situation looks like, and for, I guess, what I would consider obvious reasons, I'm not gonna disclose exact numbers, and I don't think that's relevant, because your mileage may vary. But I would say when you start out, you know, realistically, you could start out expecting to make, you know, maybe 12 to 15 US dollars an hour. It's not much, it's not great, but I think ultimately after a few years of experience building up your portfolio, working with a bunch of different companies, you know, all that. So as long as, you know, you keep going, you keep pushing through it, you work for more and more companies, you get more and more content out there, you keep that passive income coming up, and you really start to diversify your overall income, you know, you can live a pretty comfortable lifestyle. I'm not rolling in it by any means, but you know, I am very, very happy, and I think I am incredibly fortunate to be where I am. All of that said, it is a bit of a grind. It is incredibly hard. It is a lot of work, but like I said, I enjoy it so much. I think it's super fun, and I think it's just so cool just to see people, you know, using my sounds. And, you know, when I download a synth or whatever, and I see that, you know, my name or one of the companies I work for, and, you know, like being able to sit there and say, I made that, you know, that is super, super cool. So I guess that is it for this video. I know this wasn't really a tutorial, but I think this was an important video to get out, and one I've really been wanting to do for the sound design series and whatnot. And like I said, I get asked this question so much. Beyond all of that, yeah, I mean, I think it's a super cool job. I think it's really fun. Like I said, it is really, really competitive, and, you know, it's a lot of stuff to keep up on. And, you know, you've got to be on top of trends. You got to, you know, be able to understand how to make things and why and what people want, and also how to, I guess, take a project and push it further, you know, take it that one notch up to put your sample pack and the product you're creating for yourself as a company or for another company, you know, whatever it is you're doing, just making sure you're doing it the absolute best you can and really pushing it to make sure it's great. You know, I think it takes a very specific type of person to do what I do. So all of that said, yeah, I think it's super fun. I think, you know, even if you're not making a living off doing it, I think it is something worthwhile as a producer to at least try out. If all else, you know, just to make some sample packs for yourself and maybe, you know, throw them up on SoundCloud and a Selfie page and, you know, just generate a little bit of extra cash every month, because who doesn't need that? So yeah, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching, and the sound design series will be back to normal next week. We're gonna continue on with wrapping up all of this, turning stuff into a proper sample pack, and then I guess I want to address just artwork and some other kind of closing thoughts. So yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon.